Okay, good evening. I would like to call the Orange Board of Education meeting on Monday, November 21st, 2022 to order at, what time you have there, Susan?
7:03.
7:03. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Riccio, would you be kind enough to read the mission statement?
Yes, I will. The Orange Elementary School District recognizes that the education of each child is the shared responsibility of every member of our community. Our goal is to inspire and empower each student to achieve academic excellence, embrace social and individual responsibility, and lead with integrity. We believe all individuals should be valued and treated with respect. Together, we will make a difference.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any public participation. Is that correct? Susan?
I have one thing. I just wanted to express my condolences to the Musanti family. Nancy Musanti passed away last week. She had her services. I just wanted to express my condolences to the family.
Anyone else? Very well, we will move on to consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion to accept the items under the consent agenda, the minutes from the October 17th, 2022 Board of Education meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the October 17th, 2022 Board of Education meeting? Susan, second. Mr. Ziman? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? I am looking for a motion to accept the minutes from the October 17th, 2022 Board of Education meeting. Do I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, reading the same thing again. So we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Scarpetti?
Thank you, Mr. Crow, and good evening, board members. This time of year brings a start of many activities and events that occur until the end of the calendar year. As all of you know, Friday, November 11th was Veterans Day. I want to thank all the board members who were able to attend any of our festivities that occurred. For those of you that weren't able to attend, in the board update, we shared some samples and some videos and pictures. If you haven't had a moment, I ask you to do that just to get a sense of what occurred. I extend my gratitude out to the Veterans Day committees that have made that day possible, and of course the vets. We appreciate and honor them for all that they've serviced. Believe it or not, the first trimester ended November 8th, and report cards will be available to parents tomorrow, November 22nd. Another item that also was shared this time of year is the inclement weather letter sent to parents. I share this not because this is something new, but just as a reminder to any parents who are watching that if you haven't done so already, please update your PowerSchool information, emails, phone numbers and such. That's how we communicate if there's a delay or school is canceled. Lastly, we have conducted all our safety and security meetings at each of our schools and have one last lockdown to conduct, which Mr. Gray will update the board in a moment. And at the last board meeting, you may recall, we shared information regarding the continuation of the primary project grant, which we had a few questions from some board members regarding the community subscription to Peace at Home and Parent Solution. As a follow-up, I have asked Mrs. Ito in a moment to kind of share additional information, mainly to show everyone how to ascertain that information, but also the folks at home. The budget process, as we continue to update at the Finance Subcommittee meeting and with all of you, is in motion. Information went out to all directors and building principals at the end of September. Budget requests were submitted to central office at the end of October, and follow-up meetings are currently being scheduled before each administrator reviews their budget with me. I'd like to thank the negotiation committee. You know, in a moment, we're going to be going into executive session to go over one contract that's been ratified. In addition, we had another contract ratified, which will be presented to the board. Again, to all the members, I want to thank you for your time and efforts. One in particular lasted longer than typically. It gets a little bit grueling sometimes, late in the night sometimes, but appreciate the efforts, but we'll be talking more about that in executive session. And lastly, this Thursday's Thanksgiving. So I wish all of you and your family a blessed and safe Thanksgiving. For everyone watching at home and your families, I know we have a lot to be grateful for. Interesting enough, I go over my notes of what I shared in the past, and we were talking mostly about the pandemic and what the district did, and how much far we've come from the pandemic. And even this year, some of the things I stated last year was, at this time of year, volunteers were allowed to start coming back in. We've come so far, we want to continue that. And again, despite that, I hope everyone has a safe and blessed holiday. And that's the end of my report, Mr. Crowe.
Any questions for Dr. Scarpetti? Go ahead, Ken.
So I was able to attend the Memorial Day Assembly at Turkey Hill School, so it was just an awesome event. I was surprised at how many connections we had to veterans, and grandpas and uncles and dads and such were there. So terrific thing to be a part of. I thought it was really done very well, and I thought it was great that the kids had an opportunity to really understand what our veterans have done for us, and they were certainly respectful and talented with their singing as well. So terrific event. Thanks, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Ziman? No? No. Very well. Mr. Gray?
Gotcha. Good evening, everyone. I'll begin with a finance report. I'll start with grants. We have 4 grants currently running, and they are all centered around American Rescue Plan or elementary and secondary school emergency relief grants. The first that I'll review is the ESSER II emergency grant. Our allocation for that grant was $164,093 and was to be expended by September 31st of 2023. We've actually just finished spending that down. That was primarily used for summer school the past 2 summers. That was for teachers and for supplies in summer school. So that grant has now been spent down. We also have the American Rescue Plan ESSER III grant. Our allocation for this grant was $326,181. To date, we have spent $208,604, and we have $117,577 left. That grant needs to be spent down by September 31st of 2024, so we still have quite a bit of time for that. We also have 2 special education grants under the American Rescue Plan and elementary and secondary schools emergency relief funds. The first is ARP IDEA 611 and 619 grant. Our allocation for this grant was $72,921. To date, we've spent $48,792, and we have remaining $24,129. This grant is being used for special education stipends and professional development around restorative practices. And finally, the ESSER II special education grant with an allocation of $60,200. We've spent to date $40,200 and have $20,000 remaining. This grant primarily has been funding job-embedded professional development, coaching, tutoring, modeling, and co-teaching. As mentioned during previous meetings, the State of Connecticut General Assembly allocated $30 million to the Connecticut Department of Public Education for free school meals for children, and they did this through a program called School Meals Assistance Revenue Transition, which is allowing for schools to be able to use more time to provide free school lunches to families as they transition into paying or resuming full pricing in our cafeterias. This gives families time to apply for free and reduced lunches if they qualify. I urge people who feel they may qualify to apply anyway. We are still accepting applications for that. Our original allocation for the SMART funds was $193,527 at the beginning of the school year. And we calculated that we would be able to get to about the holiday break in December, providing free meals. A little math in the last few days, we've projected that we're probably going to be able to fund free lunches beyond the new year to about January 9th or 10th. Part of the SMART funding is we have to provide families and the state 30 days notice of when we feel we will run out of our funds and have to resume full pricing. So families can expect a letter to probably go out from the district at the end of next week when we return from the Thanksgiving break, or possibly the following week, giving that 30 days notice when we will resume to full pricing. Again, I urge any family that didn't receive an application at the beginning of the year for free and reduced lunch, if you feel you may qualify for free and reduced lunch, to get the application. You can get that right on the website and then send that into the school. Also, in October, we were distributed a second round of supply chain assistance funds. You may remember back in April, we received $27,000 for this. We just received a second round in October, and that was $25,793. These funds are being used to purchase unprocessed or minimally processed American-sourced food products for the school nutrition program. And finally, the 2021-22 Educational Financial System reporting was completed and certified by Dr. Scarpetti, and that was handed in by the deadline of September 1st, which leads to our AUP audit. So our auditors are currently working on the independent accountants review process, utilizing the state's agreed-upon procedures of expenditure data. The 2021-22 Independent Accountants Report will be sent to the State Department of Education no later than January 3rd per statute. Last year, we were able to get that in mid-December, and I'm hoping to possibly get it in earlier than that this year. The auditors have all of our information, and we're in good shape so far. And that concludes the finance report.
Mr. Gray, other than the letter that's going to go out regarding the lunches, could you and Dr. Scarpetti use any and all avenues that we have to communicate with the parents? Instead of, just whenever we have a communication, could we just make a footnote, because it's holiday season, these things slip through the cracks. A hungry child is not a learning child. And also, Dr. Scarpetti, perhaps when you have your meetings with your PTO group, perhaps they could assist in some of that communication as well, so that everyone is aware that there is a program out there that they can take advantage of.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Anyone else for Mr. Gray on the finances? Go ahead, Tatiana.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Regarding the free lunch program, once it goes into effect where students do have to pay for lunches, if a child shows up at school and has not paid for a lunch, how does that work?
So we do not exclude a child from getting a lunch if they don't have the money. If it's once, we'll remind parents, they may not even know that there may not be money in their account through PowerSchool. They may not be aware of that. If it's something that's continually happening, we may say to the parent, if there's something that we can do to help you out, we can give an application for free or reduced lunch if that would help. But there are varying circumstances as to why that may be happening, so we work with families when that happens.
One other question.
Sure.
A parent applies for the free lunch program, they're denied. Is there an appeals process that they can go about?
I'm not certain about that. There are really tight parameters of who qualifies and who doesn't based on annual salaries or household incomes. So if you don't fall within one of those, and it has to do with how many members are also in the family. So it's pretty cut and dried of how you qualify for either free or reduced. If you're not qualifying for free, chances are you probably would for reduced prices. But again, I think that would be something that we would want to work with the family to find out what that entails with them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry.
It's confidential.
Right, yeah.
It is.
And that's dictated by the state, the reduced and whatever.
Federal government.
So let's do this. I don't know what committee this might fall under, Dr. Scarpetti, but once if and when the lunches become the regular price and going forward, let's take a good hard look at the numbers week by week and see how many kids may or may not be dropping off, and then see if there is an issue there that we're not seeing, so that we can make sure that it doesn't snowball into something big.
It's part of finance.
Finance? So Susan, I would ask you to take that up with your committee for me. I would appreciate it.
Love
Thank you. Anyone else for Mr. Gray on finance? Would you like to go on to your next report?
Sure, thank you.
No, I'm sorry, we're moving on.
Whatever you say. Sure, the facilities update. The HVAC project here at Mary L. Tracy was completed on Election Day. If you'll recall, the town funded this through capital planning. We replaced 4 rooftop units just outside the window here. That was done on Election Day purposely because we had to crane materials up onto the roof and off of the roof. So it was good to do when there were no children in the building. That was all done in one day, and the system is up and running really well right now. So happy that's all done because we did run into quite a bit of the supply chain issues with that. We also took advantage of the long weekend in October and Election Day to replace areas of carpet with luxury vinyl tile, similar to what we have here in the board office over at Peck Place School. This product obviously it provides a much lower maintenance, cleaner, and more durable surface than carpet in the buildings, especially in high traffic areas. It's very durable in those areas. So we did take carpet out of several areas, including the main lobby, the area just in front of the Library Media Center, the main offices, and then a hallway outside of the gymnasium. We removed all the carpet, and that is now all luxury vinyl tile in the hallways. Much easier to clean with our auto scrubbers that we have, spot mopping, and just sweeping. Security updates, as Dr. Scarpetti said, all 4 of our schools have conducted their first safety security meetings of the school year. We conduct these meetings 3 times a year. In attendance at these meetings are school staff, our custodians, security monitors, school security officers, members of the Orange Police Department. Detective Nepper and Detective Bailey are always at those meetings, and sometimes they bring other members of the police department who are newer to the department to kind of understand our procedures. We also have the fire marshal's office there, the principal, school psychologist, and myself. And we review our safety security plans and procedures, and we make adjustments as necessary. Also, as Dr. Scarpetti stated, we have been holding our lockdown drills in our buildings. We've conducted 3 so far. We have 1 more to go. Again, these drills are conducted and directed by our SROs, Detective Nepper and Detective Bailey, along with other members of the police department. And once these drills take place, again, the children are very good with these drills. They understand going into it that it's going to be a drill. They know where to go when this happens. They know all the procedures. They're very resilient in this fact, but we do still send home a note to families afterwards to let them know, in case a child does come home and say, hey, we had this drill today, we were locked in our room. The principals make families aware of what it is we did during the day. Lockdown drills are usually twice a year. On the outside chance, we may do a third. And then finally, believe it or not, winter preparations as we prepare for the inevitable first snowstorm. Thank God we're not Buffalo. We are beginning that process of maintaining our equipment. So we'll be attaching the frames, the plowing frames to the trucks and testing the hydraulics and electronics in the next week to make sure everything is functioning with our plow trucks. We'll begin placing the plow sticks along the driveways and parking lots so that we're not tearing up the grass on the sides and the curbing. We've already checked the operation of all of our snow blowers, changed oil, and have fuel for those. They're all set. And finally, we just received our first shipment of ice melt, our first pallet of ice melt, which is being brought to each of the schools. So we should be prepared in the event that we do have a snowstorm in the near future. Hopefully, we won't. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for Mr. Gray on buildings and grounds? Very well. Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Thank you.
Dr. Russo.
Good evening. I'll start with our bilingual report. We are required by law to share the number of limited English or non-English speaking students in our district. And we did include the actual numbers in our latest board update, but in summary, there are 78 students speaking 22 different languages, and those top 3 languages are Spanish, Mandarin, and Arabic. Our Election Day professional sessions went very well. For the first time, they were differentiated by school needs, and we also included the specific agendas for each school in the board update for anyone who's interested in seeing the differences and what each school focused on. We just concluded the administration of the COGATS, or Cognitive Ability Tests, which just takes a look at the development of reasoning in our students and problem solving compared to same age peers. Those results will be available for parents in January. Let's see, we also had our handwriting session with our pre-K through 3 teachers. It was very well received. Our ACES occupational therapist, Amy Warren, facilitated that session so that everyone would have an idea about, what are the components for handwriting. We're noticing that many of our students need some support in that area. So from that session, we will create a handwriting committee, and members, the different teachers from different grade levels will be on that committee, and then review and analyze different resources and strategies. Not that we have to buy a handwriting program, but we all need to be on the same page with the language for the formation, the grouping of the letters, especially for the younger students, and how that aligns with our scope and sequence. And then after that, we will have that committee report to the members of the Professional Development Evaluation Committee, or PDEC, to then share those findings with the curriculum subcommittee and then to the whole board. We did have a follow-up Election Day session with our kindergarten teachers for math. One of our math specialists reviewed and provided more resources on number sense. We also had an opportunity, based on the discussions at Election Day, to clarify for kindergarten teachers scope and sequence for the K math skills, the units of study. We reviewed some of those standards that were challenging, and we assembled student resources to align with that scope and sequence. We followed that the next day with kindergarten teachers on oral language development. That's aligned to our updated scope and sequence as well. And as Dr. Scarpetti mentioned, the report cards will be available for parents tomorrow. We did want to share that, because we had some discussions or questions at a previous meeting, that there was consensus achieved by our teachers on the selection of which standards for the 3 trimesters. And we did include those in the board update if you're interested in seeing which standards were selected by those teachers for each marking period. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for Dr. Russo?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Your time's almost up.
I know, I forgot one thing. Mr. Ziman is going to provide an update on our discussions regarding Title I that we had as a team at our curriculum subcommittee meeting. And we will meet with Dr. Scarpetti to discuss an agenda for Monday. And that concludes my report.
Very good. Any questions for Dr. Russo? Very well, thank you. Mrs. Ito?
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Scarpetti mentioned, he asked that I prepare a brief explanation of the Peace at Home Parenting Solution subscription. So that is what I'm going to do. So just as a brief reminder, the Peace at Home subscription comes from our grant from Primary Project, which allows eligible students in grades K through 3 a play-based way to personally connect with a caring adult. We identify these children through a teacher survey, input from the teacher, as well as parental feedback. And there are 4 domains that are considered when identifying children who might benefit from this. So using funds from this project, we offer a town-wide subscription called Peace at Home Parenting Solution, and it provides sessions that are live, interactive, and online classes and on-demand recorded sessions. Information about how to access these resources are sent home in the weekly newsletters with, sometimes they give you a summary of the course offerings, and other times you have to go into the link. But I think the last time they actually listed some of the offerings to sort of entice people a little more. So you'll see the homepage here explains how to log in, what the registration code is for Orange, anybody who lives in Orange to receive the free subscription, which is capital word Orange and then Peace after that. So I will log into the subscription. And you'll see that I'm logged in, but I'm going to click on that so you can just simply see that if you do not have a login set up, you would click where it says, I need to set up a login, and they fill in their name, first and last name, just quick little information about the age of their children. This is where the code is, the town, and then the code goes here. And then once that's set up, they put in their own password, confirm it, and then they're registered. After you're registered, you don't have to keep doing that. It's just a one-time registration. Let's see. So once you're logged in, you'll see the landing page here. Provides a viewer with a quick video summary of the offerings that the program has for families. And this right here, I'm just going to show you a quick little snippet of one of the recorded sessions. Fast forward a bit.
I see that we have a question already, that's great.
This is Ruth Freeman. She's the founder of Peace at Home
So,
Solutions, and
I
a
just
school
want to start
and
with
she's
a
a
poll and
psychologist.
ask you all, what brought you here? We have one parent that actually is telling us that. Do you want to be more patient? Do you want to yell less? Do you wish your child could listen better? Do you wish family life was calmer? Or do you want to get on the same page with your co-parent? And hopefully, if that's the case, you're watching it together. And while you're completing this question, I'm going to take a look at the chat. How should we deal, for some kids,
So they
He talks
provide an
about-
agenda of different offerings that,
kids
or the
calm down.
different
And we're going to be
items
talking
that
about
you'll
that a
hear.
lot today.
And so in this particular situation, the course was offered at noon. It was a topic I was interested in. I knew I was not going to be able to view this at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I've got work to do. So I registered for the course, and after the course was over, they send me a link. That link is active for a full year for me to view, and I can even share it with others if it's something that I find helpful. In addition to the link, they send you, handouts that you can print out as a reference. So each course is different, so some might be 27 minutes, some might be an hour. This particular one, I believe, was an hour-long session on dealing positively with your children. It talks about brain development and how children think and how we want to activate a child's brain in a positive way. So it was a really, this particular one was very interesting, but there's lots of different topics that are offered. And so just as a quick reminder,
That are very specific to
about
young
that.
children, but what happens today will also.
this is, again, the subscription, so people log on using that link, and this is information that is shared through the principal's newsletter using that login registration code. If any further questions, if anybody has any questions about this subscription, they can reach out to the school psychologists, the social workers. They often will reach out to families specifically if they know a course is coming up that they might think would be interesting to a particular family. So they do try to connect families with topics that are in this subscription. And I'm certainly here for anyone who has any questions regarding that or anything else related to special ed. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Mrs. Zito? Go ahead, Mr. Ziman.
Ms. Zito, you weren't upset about having that work at noon, were you? Because I think this is a wonderful resource.
Yeah, it is a great, and the multiple opportunities to engage in it.
Well, the
live
fact
or-
that, the
or
fact
otherwise,
that
which
we
is
have
nice.
it is terrific.
Yeah, thank you.
Betty, go ahead.
Thank you, Mrs. Ito. How long do we have the subscription for?
Well, at the end of this year, we will be applying for the grant again. And if we receive the grant again for another 2-year cycle, we make a decision as to whether we want to continue the subscription. So this is, I believe, our 4th year, well, it's our 4th year in the grant, and I believe it's our 4th year with this subscription. And we are looking for ways to encourage families to use it because, as we talked about last meeting, it is underutilized, and so we have been trying different ways to sort of market it and get the word out there, because it is a great resource.
Yeah, it seems that way. Do you have any way of knowing how many hits it gets?
Yeah, they do run reports for us.
Okay. And you say it's underutilized, so,
Yeah, it is on our Orange website as well,
okay.
just as another way to access that.
So that if people whose children are not yet in the school system, but are preschoolers or something, they would also be able to access it.
Yes, and I love that you asked that question because it reminded me, I had spoken with someone from the town who was going to put up a flyer for us, and I want to follow up with her to see if she did that yet. She's also one of our child associates.
Okay. And I mean, I'm thinking that maybe preschools in town would like to have a contact in some way to
Find it.
alert them to the resource.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, Betty, and that was one of our thinking. I'm not sure if I'm going to find it this way.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So, yeah, if we go to departments and special ed, I believe you're going to find it there, but I didn't really prepare to show you where it is on the website, so I think I'll hold off on that.
Anyone else for Mrs. Zito? No? Thank you. Okay, board business. Possible action on the 2023-2024 Orange Board of Education student calendar. I would assume that y'all have taken a look at the calendar. So I will be looking for a motion to accept the proposed 2023.
Mr. Crowe, at this time, we're just looking to review, and that in December,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay. I apologize if we want to give a moment, because I think this is the first time the board is actually seeing this,
Oh,
so.
yes, that's correct. Does anyone have any comments?
I just had a question. In the past, we used to line up our April break with other local districts. Is that something that we look at? Because I've noticed the last few years that some school districts are taking off the second week, the week of Good Friday, which are the second weeks, and we're often the third week. And for teachers in other districts, that can be a problem with taking time off to be home with our kids.
I know that that's always been a challenge. I know the main goal that we have is to be congruent with BOA. And so what we do, and as I shared at the past board meeting, we actually met with BOA first, made sure that we were all aligned with regards to that, because it impacts the families. There are sporadically some things that are different with all the towns. It's tough to do that. And some years past, ACES has created a calendar. And I know that week of April break actually aligns with ACES. I'm not too sure if all the districts are going to be doing that. At one point, they were looking to require districts to do that, but it's not required. So what ACES does is share with that territory, and then it's up to the individual district. But I know right now we're aligned to the ACES April break.
Thank you.
Sure.
So to piggyback on what Dr. Scarpetti was saying is that ACES does create a calendar. We used to be required to keep the similar holidays and begins and ends. It's not required any longer by state statute. So ACES does have a calendar. I think I shared it with you guys last time. And, most of the districts are doing their own thing.
Any other comments or questions regarding the calendar? Okay, so you'll be looking for a motion on that in the December meeting?
Yes, my apologies for if it was.
That's not a problem, it's my fault. So if you have any questions between now and then, by all means, please contact Dr. Scarpetti and make sure that we have it straightened out prior to the December meeting. All right? Okay, policy, second read, policy 6121, non-discrimination. Do I have a motion to accept policy 6121 as presented? Susan, second. Ronette, any discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Good. Policy second read, policy 6164.12, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, also known as AIDS. Do I have a motion to accept policy 6164.12 as presented? Tatiana, second. Betty, any discussion on this policy? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Policy 5131.7, weapons and dangerous instruments. Do I have a motion to accept policy 5131.7 as presented? Mr. Vitale? Second? Mr. Ziman? Any discussion on this policy? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Policy 5141.5, suicide intervention and prevention. Do I have a motion to accept policy 5141.5 as presented? Susan? Ronette? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? First read policy 6172.4, Title I parental engagement. And another first policy read, policy 6141.31, bilingual biculture. We will be looking to vote on those two policies in the December meeting. If there are any questions or comments, please contact Dr. Scarpetti, Betty, or myself. Okay? All right. The next thing on board business was we will be going into executive session to discuss the AA para union contract. Okay? Standing committees, Ms. Riccio.
The Finance Subcommittee met prior to this meeting. Mr. Gray explained very thoroughly what we discussed. All financials are in order, and things are going well. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Riccio? Very well. Personnel policy, Mrs. Hadlock?
Our committee met early in November to discuss the Title I parental engagement policy and the bilingual bicultural policy. I want to extend a thank you to those board members who reached out with questions before this meeting, and I encourage everyone to contact me or Dr. Scarpetti or Mr. Kraut before our next meeting if you have any further questions or comments. I also want to thank Dr. Russo for all the information about the Title I program in our schools, and also by giving us information about the number of students who are English language learners. And I guess Mr. Ziman is going to give us some other information.
everybody's done
I'm going to thank him for that in advance. Our committee will meet on November 28th to look at some other policies.
You got Mr. Ziman upset there, Mrs. Hadlock.
Everybody's doing my stuff.
Bill, any questions for Mrs. Hadlow? Thank you. Buildings and grounds?
We met back on Wednesday, November 2nd. In addition to what Mr. Gray already covered in his report was that we mostly discussed the 5-year capital project plans so that we can submit that over to the town, to the Ralph Oakenquist Committee. But we went over that in quite detail, and I think we put a pretty good list together that we submitted, and we'll wait and see what we hear back from them. But otherwise, that is it.
Any questions for Mr. Cap? Thank you. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for, and he's irritated, so it should be good. Curriculum, Mr. Ziman.
First, a disclaimer. Dr. Russo and I are a little out of practice, so in advance, I apologize for any feelings of deja vu. This month's meeting touched on a number of topics. First, we learned how we were going to use our Title I funds. The determination of how this funding is spent is left up to the district. We've decided to use these funds to focus on early reading success. Next, Dr. Russo presented a report on our bilingual education. While all of our teachers are expected to be ESL teachers, the district also employs 2 specific ESL teachers and 2 ESL aides. It's a good thing because our 78 students for whom English is a second language bring to us a United Nations-like 20 different languages. To aid them in their transition to life in an English-speaking country, we employ iPads with a special translation software. For many of these children, based on their age and education, this enables them to communicate with their teachers and classmates from day one. Professional development. There was a time when all the learning in schools was being done by the students. Rather short-sighted, don't you think? It turns out that there is a world of increasing and changing knowledge that is important for teachers. That's why professional development has become an important component of every school district's calendar. This past election day was no different, though this day was unique because the teachers at each school working with their principal were given the freedom to determine what topics would be most beneficial to them. COGATS. Hey, my first acronym. The cognitive abilities tests were administered to all students in grades 3 and 5. These tests help determine which students can be admitted to LEAP. While only a few students may be admitted to the program, these tests help us get a fuller picture of all our students. Handwriting, the fine art of handwriting. Every so often, somebody bemoans the fact that handwriting is no longer taught in school, at least not in traditional ways. Well, that's true. Keyboarding and texting will probably ultimately replace almost all handwriting. Still, children need to utilize fine motor skills for writing and drawing. To address this, our occupational therapist will offer a refresher for all our K-3 teachers. I have nothing left.
Very well. Any questions for Mr. Ziman? Thank you, Mr. Ziman. ACES, Ms. Riccio.
So ACES has an annual report that we put out each year. I'm going to pass one each direction. It goes into a lot of things about ACES as a whole. It's usually glossy. There's actually a really nice picture of me in it, so I was really happy about that. Some years, not so much. I don't know. I don't write those things down. I just know I saw myself in there. Anyway, it's interesting to me because I get reminded of all of the things that ACES does. It's like I'm in the throes of it as not only being a representative from Orange, but, chairing. And so I just wanted to go over a couple of things with you, is that we have 3 magnet schools with ACES that we are able to participate in if we choose in Orange. ECA, which is Educational Center for the Arts, that's really at the high school level. Has a lot of creative opportunities for students, and quite a few Amity students do participate. We have ACES at Chase, which is a middle school magnet. ACES at Chase will be going to be ultimately 6 to 12. It's currently 6 through 9. And we're working on adding a grade each year. ACES Wintergreen Interdistrict Magnet School has been doing very well. They're both ACES at Chase and Wintergreen are STEAM schools. And there's 175 families that participate in one of the 3 magnet schools. And we also have special ed schools. We have other programs for incarcerated youth so that they can get an education, in many cases, skills to be able to be functional in society once they are out of incarceration. And there's also a follow-up to some of it as well. There are follow-ups for students who need support to work. And so we have mentors and coaches that help with various programs to help students. We also have quite a few other services that are provided, including transportation, including IT. And so it's, all of those things are in the book. When you look at it in one place, it's like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that we have going on. One of the things, Liz, that you mentioned was the regional calendar that we did vote on, and it does show that we have the 3rd week. ACES had put that 3rd week in there, so Dr. Scarpetti wasn't lying to us. In addition, during the holidays, at one point, they had a competition of pumpkin making, and some of the special ed schools, as well as the magnet schools, created some very, very interesting pumpkins. Overall, ACES is on track. It's doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. We're providing services to the regional districts. There are 25 districts that participate in ours. We're one of the largest, we're the 2nd largest RESC in Connecticut. And we are partnering with all of the other RESCs for certain services that they'll be able to offer to all of us as well. Things like investment opportunities. So in some locations, they have surplus funds and they can invest for capital improvements and things of that nature. So more to come on that. But a lot going on in ACES office. And on this month coming up, in December, well, our next meeting is usually the meeting where they showcase some of the art of the students in all schools, not only in the magnet schools, but also in our special schools. And so if anybody would like cards, I know, Mr. Ziman, you enjoyed them in the past, so if you'd like them again, let me know. They usually give me 2 sets, so.
I'll be glad to pay for it.
You're good? If anybody would like them. So it's always a fun meeting because we get to see the students and congratulate them for their skills. That's it.
Very good. That is a nice picture of you, Susan.
Thank you.
It's on page 6 if anyone wants to look. Any questions for Ms. Riccio? ACES. Go ahead, Betty.
Susan, I think you said 178 families are participating in the magnet schools. Do you mean 178 families from Orange and Amity?
No.
Okay, that's what I
No,
didn't think
as a
that's
whole.
what you meant, but I just wanted to check.
When you look at the number of families, when you look at the number of families that participate from all of the towns,
Yeah,
there's
okay.
178 total.
Yeah. Do you have any idea how many families from Orange participate?
Yes. I have to look up and tell you. There's usually a chart that's in our packet.
Okay, well, I mean, it's all right if you
I
don't.
can let you know.
Don't, yeah, okay.
I'll find it.
Because sometimes I wonder, how do families, how do families get the information about those opportunities?
Well, the magnet schools are technically Amity's, it's Region 5. So they would get it through the middle school and the high school.
But the STEAM school at Wintergreen is an elementary school, isn't it?
No, it's a middle school.
Oh, it's also a middle school. Oh, so there are no elementary magnet schools?
There's a sixth grade.
In the
They-
RESC, I mean, for.
Well, the 6th grade, they have a 6th
Right.
grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so otherwise, magnet school opportunities would mostly be looking into New Haven schools.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, anyone else for Ms. Riccio? No? Very well. Okay, I am looking for a motion for us to enter into executive session to discuss matters pertaining to the administrative assistant and para-union contract, also to invite Dr. Scarpetti, will you be joining us, sir, into the meeting? Do I have a motion to enter into executive session? Susan, second. Mr. Ziman? Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? We are in executive session as of 7:53. All right, thank you very much. All right, then, so the Orange Board of Education hereby moves to provide funding for and to approve and accept the agreement for a successor collective bargaining agreement with the administrative assistants and para-union for the period from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2024. The board further delegates to the chair the authority to execute all required contract documents required in this manner. This is the motion. Do I have a motion to accept it? I'm sorry, Ronette? Liz? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Very well. I am looking for a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting. Ms. Riccio, Mr. Ziman, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? We are adjourned at 8:12. Thank you very much.